Let's begin with that breaking news. The World Juniors Championship is canceled. The official confirmation comes from the International Ice Hockey Federation. And the reason they're giving? COVID. It's outbreaks, quarantines, and canceled games, and they all led to this decision. The tournament had just kicked off on Sunday in Alberta, and only a handful of games had been played before today's disappointing news. So let's stick with this story and turn to Donovan Bennett. He's the host and senior writer for Sportsnet in Toronto. Donovan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So Donovan, by your assessment, is this the right decision, the wrong decision, or both?
It's a bit of both, I suppose. It was inevitable. I think it was the right decision to cancel it. I think it was the wrong decision maybe to put the athletes in this position in the first place and how it was handled. So I'm a mixture of devastated for the young athletes who have had this tournament canceled and disgusted on the way the IIHF canceled things going into it. You're looking at an age group of kids, this 2002 age group, who've had the under 18s canceled, now the World Juniors canceled, and so many kids going through the same scenario, whether they've had their senior years in high school canceled and their freshman experience very different. So my heart bleeds for them, but also bleeds for the young women who had their tournament canceled in January. And the IIHF said, well, we can't have tournaments safely in January. Well, theoretically, why were you able to do one in December? It's proven now that they weren't. But the real reason is money, because this tournament is a moneymaker for the IIHF. So the fact that the protocols weren't changed as the information came in, with Omicron being a different beast, the fact that the players were in hotels with fans and with the general public let us know that they didn't really take the virus as serious. Even the fact that there were fans in stands let us know that they were more encouraged by the amount of money they would make and not the real threat of the virus for the young athlete.
Donovan, you mentioned the sense of devastation for those young players, but it's also the fans who are devastated. The pandemic has taken so much from us, and this was one thing, we're seeing the reaction online, people saying one thing I was looking forward to, and COVID took that away as well. How big of a deal do you think this is?
Well, it's a massive deal. In a way, COVID had ruined so many sports plans over the holidays that the World Juniors had center stage, and it is part of our sporting calendar in Canada. It's part of Canadiana. So many fans were looking forward to a little sense of normalcy, and Canada has an outstanding team once again. So there was a real chance to get gold on home soil in Alberta. However, I should say that I think this is just part and parcel with what life is like. This virus is laughing at our plans, quite frankly. And if the NHL, with all of their protocols and the money at stake, realized they had to pause their season, and if the NHLPA and players realized they couldn't go to the Olympics, then surely a tournament so short in its window, it's supposed to end on January 5th, it was going to be always an uphill battle to be able to get through this tournament without anything happening, and unfortunately we weren't able to.
Let's talk about the word canceled itself, because there's still some confusion out there. Is it possible that, hey, we could pick up in a couple of months right where we left off, or does canceled mean no, forget it, it's over?
It's a great point by you, because the words certainly matter in this case, and the word is canceled and not postponed. The same thing that happened with the women's World Juniors, as I mentioned. And when the IIHF says canceled, basically it takes the burden off of them. And if anyone else, another stakeholder, the hosting body, Hockey Canada, wants to figure out a way that we could get this tournament in later, sure, they can come to a proposal and we can work collectively. But if they say postpone, then the burden is still on the IIHF to make sure that the tournament does happen at some point. Between now and June, they have 20 tournaments that they have to run. Plus, obviously, there's an Olympics coming up. So this schedule is already jam-packed. There's going to be more cancellations. They've already canceled all of their tournaments in January. So because of that money at stake and because of the interest in eyeballs, there could be a chance for this tournament to happen in the future, but there's going to be tough to get ice time, given the NHL is trying to get their schedule in as well. So it's not totally dead, but the plausible deniability is taken away from the IIHF when they say canceled and not postponed.
Donovan, one final question, because you did bring up the Olympics, and I can't help but wonder, we're just a few weeks away from the Olympics in China. Are officials watching? Is there a possibility 2022 Olympics is not going to happen in 2022?
In short, no, because the IOC and the governing body and host nation in China are steadfast that it's going to happen. But are they going to happen like normal? It's clear, probably not. You could have people missing the medal round because they're in quarantine. Athletes saying they're not going to be able to go. We're seeing trouble for athletes qualifying because COVID is so rampant on the international stage. So it's tough to really predict what it's going to be like in February because this has changed over the course of the last 2 weeks, quite frankly. But it won't be an Olympics like the one that we saw in the summer, where aside from some conversation around getting vaccinated beforehand, the games weren't really impacted by COVID-19. That's not going to be the case with this new variant.